Hello and welcome back to Bookish, and welcome to a tag for Tag Tuesday. This is my Problematic Faves Tag. It was created by Hygiene Starlight. I'll leave a link to that channel down below. I was tagged by Courtney Fairder to do this tag some time ago, and I missed that, and I apologize for that. It's really windy, so I have no idea if you're going to be able to hear me. And I'm always a little self-conscious about filming outside. On top of that, it's the coldest day of the year so far where I live. It's only 42 out right now, which is pretty cold for where I live, but we're not in the part of Texas that got snow or anything like that, so I guess we're lucky. So this tag is all about problematic favorites. So question number one is, are there problematic authors, racist, homophobic, etc. on your bookshelves? Did these authors play an important formative role in your life? And the answer is yes. I began my kind of reading, and my real interest in reading began with American classic authors of the early 20th century. So Hemingway and Faulkner are definitely authors who are on my list. And, both those men were racist. Hemingway was homophobic. So yes, and did they play a formative role in who I became? I would say no. My parents were remarkably free of racial prejudice, considering where and when they grew up in East Texas, and they taught me to be that way. So the racism of Hemingway and Faulkner didn't affect me. I think probably, and I've said this before, I kind of thought I wanted to be Ernest Hemingway for a while. The fishing, the outdoorsy, the travel, the Lost Generation thing. I wanted to be like that, and so in that sense, I guess it affected me and influenced me. Okay, question two is, are there problematic authors on your TBR right now? And how do you reconcile reading those? And I'm going to say no. I don't believe there are. I'll just tell you that I have a tendency to stop reading books by problematic authors when I find out that they're problematic. For instance, Richard Ford, I've read a couple of books by him. I understand he had a run-in with Colson Whitehead where he spat on him. I stopped reading Richard Ford. It helped that I really didn't find his work all that memorable, even though I thought the writing was fine. But generally speaking, I think I am problematic author free on my TBR. Okay, so question three is, do you do research to find out about your author's politics and if they're problematic? And I'm going to say again, for the most part, I don't do research. I am on Booktube. I've been here for a while. The tendency to hear about problematic authors, so I don't really have to reconcile anything, because I don't think that I have problematic authors on my TBR other than authors of classics. Balzac would be an example of an author who was anti-Semitic, at least in some ways, even though later in his life he did kind of reform in that regard. But with classic authors, I have a tendency not to worry about them being problematic, because they are byproducts of the time, place where they lived and wrote, and I can easily, for the most part, ignore those elements of their books and chalk it up to the culture in which they lived and kind of not find them at fault. Also, it helps that I'm not giving them any money, which then leads me to question number four, and that is to kind of describe what you think about ethical consumption. If we're talking about ethical consumption of books, I do not buy new books by problematic authors. I don't want to put my money in their pocket. In a capitalist system, that's a way of registering my disapproval, and I take full advantage of it by not buying their books anymore if I had been, or not buying their books in the first place. Okay, question five is, how many transgender, non-binary authors have you read? And I at least two. And I'll be honest, this is an area where, in terms of diversity in my reading, in all cases, where I need to improve my reading, and hope to by finding what I'm sure are excellent authors who come from all these different groups, and in reading them and enjoying and experiencing their work. This leads into question number six is, do you have a favorite transgender, non-binary author? And that would be Sarah Gailey, the author of The Hippo Duology and Magic for Liars. I've talked about The Hippo Duology on my channel several times. As a matter of fact, one of the first 10 videos I made was about this kind of fantasy novel she had about outlaws and feral hippos, which I just thought it was great and fun. So yes, I do have a favorite, granted that my reading experience in this area is fairly limited. Okay, question 7 is, how diverse is your bookshelf? and I'm going to say it's increasingly diverse. When I started my Booktube channel, and even for years before, I looked at my shelf and realized there's not a lot of diversity represented on my shelves, and hopefully I'm making that better. There are some areas, as I mentioned, with transgender, non-binary authors where I need to make more of a conscious effort. I don't really, in the past, I really haven't paid attention to this very much, but I do think I read a variety of authors in the kind of racial and ethnic sense. I am trying to read, and have been doing, I think, a better job of reading more novels by women. This is an area that I definitely struggled in, and one of the things I want to do on my Booktube channel and in my future reading is to make that reading more diverse. Okay, question number 8 is, do you intentionally intend to read trans authors, non-binary authors? And I think I already answered this, and the answer would be yes. By the way, the Reading Women Challenge oftentimes helps a lot, and I didn't mention this in the answer before, but the Reading Women Challenge put on by the Reading Women, they have a podcast. I'll try to leave a link to that down below. They put out a list, a reading list, kind of challenge list, and that's been really helpful to me in diversifying my reading. So I would say yes, I do try to do that intentionally. Prompt 9 is to boost some trans, non-binary, and otherwise diverse booktubers. So I'm going to start off by shouting out my friend Lucifer from Argyle Dinosaur, who would like for me to remind you that asexual people are people too, and they belong in this list, even though I don't think that they have a letter in the acronym. She has a really fun channel. It is definitely for adults. It's not always books, but I love her channel. Also, Brianna from Brianna's Library, they do some serious reading on social issues, and they have an amazing channel, and I go there for book recommendations all the time. Jen the Librarian, an English librarian, she has great book recommendations particularly, and this is another place where I found books from the LGBTQ plus recommendations. They have a good book channel. And then this has nothing to do, I don't think, with transgender or non-binary, but two Indigenous Native American booktubers, Thunderbird Woman Reading and Native Lady Book Warrior, both have great channels where they recommend a lot of works by Native Americans and Indigenous authors, so I want to shout them out. And then prompt number 10 is to tag people. I'm not going to tag anybody. If you think this tag looks like something you're interested in and talking about, please do the tag. Anyway, I look forward to your comments in the comment section below, and as always, thank you for watching.